Simplify the sin of pi over 2 minus theta divided by sec pi plus theta. Sometimes I just go and say sine, cos, tan, cot, sec, cosec. And I remember they are inverse functions, they are complementary functions. So just so that I can remember that. When I go then and say the sine of, if I say the sine of pi over 2 minus theta divided by the sec of pi plus theta, then I'm quickly going to do a cast diagram for my first one. Pi over 2 minus theta is in my second quadrant and my first quadrant because it's pi over 2 minus, so I'm there. So if I have my cast, if this is pi over 2 minus, it's in my first quadrant. In my first quadrant, sinus is positive. I'm working for my y-axis. Working for my y-axis, I use my complementary angles, and the complementary of cos is sine, or for sine is cosine. So it is changed to the cos of theta. Divide by the sec of. Now before I change this to cos, I'm just going to say, what is the sec? Now sec of pi plus, where would I find this value? If I draw a cast diagram for that one, if I draw a cast diagram for this one, cast, pi plus, there's 0, there's pi, so pi plus is going to be in my third quadrant. Now remember that the sec has the same values as cos, it's the inverse. In other words, sine was, if you remember, your unit circle was y over r, cos was x over r, tan was y over x, cot was x over y, sec was the inverse, which is r over x, and cosec was r over y, which means that the signs here cast, so if cos will have x and r positive, that's why cos is positive, because x and r are both positive, and which means sec is also positive. So sec has got the same rules as cos when it comes to your cast diagram. So if I say pi plus theta, then tangent is positive and tan as well as cot is positive, which means that in my third quadrant, sec is negative because cos is also negative. So I'm going to say the sec is negative in my third quadrant, so this becomes negative. The sec, because I'm working from my x-axis, this is from my x-axis. So when I work from my x-axis, sec stays sec of my reference angle theta. So this is very important. When I work from my y-axis, I use my complementary angle. So sine changed to cos. If I work from my x-axis, then sec stays sec. Okay, when I want to carry on now, I'm going to say this equals the cos of theta, divide by, and sec is the inverse of cos. Now the inverse of sec, this is the same as the cos of theta over 1 multiplied by 1 over sec, which means 1 over sec take above the line is times the cos of theta. In other words, when sec goes above the line, it becomes cos theta because it's actually 1 over sec. There's still a negative sign in the front, so this will be negative cos square of theta. You should know, but remember just for in case, that this is the same as negative the cos of theta square. Okay, the negative must be outside the bracket, but this and this means exactly the same thing.